You just find out that you're pregnant and you have to pay thousands of dollars on your baby that's not even here yet, not to mention their first year expenses. Hey everyone, it's Courtney. I do everything motherhood, lifestyle, and pregnancy on a budget on this channel. So if you like those types of videos, make sure you are subscribed and that you give this video a thumbs up. Today I'm going to be sharing how to prepare for baby's first year expenses on a budget. If you're new to my channel, I started a baby on a budget series, and this is actually the second video in that series. So if you have not seen the first one, I will have that link down below. In that first video, I go over baby's first year expenses, and let me tell you, that was so mind-blowing to see how much it actually costs to have a baby and that baby's first year expenses. I don't want to give too much away, but if you haven't seen that first video, I'm just going to say right now, I saved thousands of dollars by doing a lot of tips and tricks that I share in that video, so make sure you check it out. But like I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about how to prepare for baby's first year expenses on a budget. So now that you know how much babies are going to cost before they get here as well as their first year, now what? So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is acknowledge as well as research how much it's actually going to cost to have a baby in the first year. Like I said, I did a video on that, and so you can go ahead and check that out if you want specific numbers. Number 2 is assess your current income streams and see if you're bringing in enough money to sustain what you need to pay for baby's first year as well as those months leading up to having the baby. Number 3 is to create a budget. Once you've assessed how much money you're bringing in, your incomes, whether that's one income or two incomes, you want to create a new budget. I say new because a lot of times people already have a budget going, but it's so important to make sure you're creating a new one specifically revolving around baby as well as baby expenses up to their first year. There are so many different type of budgets out there, but I'm going to be sharing with you what I specifically did in my first pregnancy and how I was able to afford everything without going into debt. So I did the sub savings account method. So basically while my husband was working, I was working too. I got a part-time job to cover expenses because I knew having a baby was going to cost a lot of money. So basically how this method worked is I just took whatever my paycheck was and I put it in a savings account, and I only used that money for baby stuff. So if it was something for the registry or after she was born and we needed something, all of the money came out of there. So how did I know how much to put in there? To be honest with you, when I had my first baby, I had no idea how much it was really going to cost. I did a lot of research on products, but I didn't really think about how much it would actually cost after she got here. So luckily, I was able to just save all of the money that I made. So I had a pretty good chunk of money in that savings account, which allowed us to cover majority of her expenses. And I'm currently pregnant with number 2, and we're due in January, and we're essentially doing the same method this time around as well. So why I would recommend this budgeting method is because it's super simple. It's almost out of sight, out of mind. I would recommend going through what the expenses are prior to baby as well as after baby, and do some math to see how much you need to be saving each month to sustain as well as to get those big one-time purchase items. See if there's a way you could just take that amount each month and just put it into a savings account, so then that way you don't have to worry about trying to navigate it within your other expenses in your regular bank account. But ultimately, just create a new budget. That is just super key and super important no matter which method you choose. Number 4 is assess that budget and see where you can cut costs or increase your income streams in order to fit that new budget. I know this is easier said than done, and a lot of times you don't really know how much money to set aside and how much they're realistically going to cost each month. The sooner you start cutting costs now, the less stressed out and tight budget you have to be later when big expenses come up. Number 5, and this one's super important, is will you be a stay-at-home mom? Will you be transitioning from 2 incomes to 1 income? Do you plan on going back to work after maternity leave? These are really important things to ask yourself and be able to factor into your budget and expenses to make sure that you, again, are bringing in enough money to sustain that and start to adjust your income and your lifestyle to those transitions now rather than later. And along with that, number 6, start living that budget now. So even if you just found out you're pregnant and you have 8 months until the baby comes, I would just recommend starting to live on that budget sooner rather than later, so when the baby comes, you're not shocked at the amount of money that is coming out of your paycheck that you didn't think was going to be coming out. And number 7, make sure you factor in one-time costs versus ongoing costs. I kind of touched on this a little bit, but if you watch my last video, I break down the cost of ongoing expenses versus one-time expenses. And my biggest suggestion is when you're in that pregnancy phase, not when the baby, after the baby comes, I would just really focus on those one-time expenses and make sure that you're budgeting enough each month to pay for those things. Specifically, your registry. Your registry adds up very quickly, even if you get the bare minimum. So just make sure that you start sooner rather than later. Calculate what you could possibly be paying monthly for ongoing costs once the baby's here versus the one-time costs that you'll have to pay for before baby comes as well as after. Number 8 is know where every penny is going. What I mean by this is make sure every purchase that you make when you're pregnant and you're getting stuff for the baby is accounted for. It is so easy to just go to the store and want to get a million things for your baby because it's new and it's exciting, but just make sure that you are tracking everything you're getting and how much everything is costing you, so you're not buying multiples of things you don't need, or you're not going into debt already before the baby even gets here. Number 9, and this one is very important as well, is start saving now for unexpected costs in the future. So for me, I personally like to have between $500 to $1,000 as like an emergency fund for the baby for things that come up that you didn't know that you were gonna have to spend money on. So for example, I had to go out and buy a dock top within the first couple days of my baby coming home. At first, before she was born, there was no way I was going to spend that much money on a pillow. Then we got desperate, we were tired, and we ended up buying one full price. So I would just highly recommend just having an emergency fund if you can, even if it's just a couple $100 or $50. Anything can help so you're not going over budget if something unexpected comes up that you have to pay for. And number 10, research and planning equals savings. I kind of touched on this already, but the sooner you start researching what you need and the sooner you start planning for your future, especially that baby's first year, the more money you're gonna end up saving. So factoring in your needs versus wants when it comes to having the baby is extremely, extremely important and factors into saving a lot of money. And you can easily save thousands of dollars by just following these 10 simple steps to help you prepare for baby's first year expenses on a budget. I personally saved $28,500 on my baby's first year expenses just by following these 10 simple steps. So I hope this was helpful, and if you have any tips that you want to share for other moms, comment them down below. And make sure you are subscribed. I'm going to continue to be doing videos within this series, and if there's anything specifically you want to see, comment that down below as well. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!